we're gonna start with why we're on doing this on the phone first. Where are you
Yeah.
right now?
I actually am in my old office. I mean, technically, I don't really have permission to be here, but I drove 2.5 hours coming in from Allentown, Pennsylvania, after spending the last few nights out there with my daughter. We did a daddy-daughter retreat, and I had to drop off my daughter with her mom so she can take her home. I have a meeting here. I had to use the bathroom. I still have access to my old building, so so I came in, and then. Yeah, I mean, the guys that I sublease the office to aren't in, so I hope they don't mind that I'm just using this squatting real quick.
I love that, man. I love that. I heard the news yesterday on LinkedIn. I got the text from you first yesterday, and I was just so happy for you. For the two people under a rock who missed it, what happened yesterday?
Yeah, man. So official news went out. I sold 16 handles. This is my first exit. I ended up selling to my multi-unit franchisee, him and YouTuber Danny Duncan. They're now the new owners of 16 handles. And so couldn't also be more proud to see somebody who's believed in the brand, kind of, was pot committed, and then also just learning about their plans and what they're going to do to really accelerate this, drive it through, the Gen Z. And it's going to be awesome. And I think something that I started 14 years ago, to see it now into the hands of kind of the next gen, I feel like it's more of like passing the baton. Although technically I passed them more than just the baton. I passed them the whole company, but it's I mean, I'm really excited on behalf of 16 Handles, also for the team, most of who transitioned over with them. I'm just it's been a long 24 hours. Been getting a lot of messages, as you could probably imagine, but overall, just a lot of mixed emotions. I mean, I'm super proud and excited at the same time. It's been my identity, my adult career here in New York ever since I moved here back in 2008. And so I'm sure, I'll wrap my head around that as well, over time. But right now I'm trying to enjoy it. But again, I just think that immigrant hustle mentality, people are like, what are you doing next? And I'm like, well, I've been working on something. And the others are like, hey man, you should probably, take time to enjoy this. And so I'll try to do that as well. And I think it was very apropos that, again, this news was, the news went out when I was out of town, actually. It wasn't planned that way. I had planned my vacation with my daughter many months ago. And so kind of interesting. I was at a water park actually when the press release went out, and my phone started blowing up, and I had like a water, like a water cover on the phone, because I was like taking pictures. I was just like, oh my goodness. And I was like, hold on, Jubilee, I gotta get out of the pool. and so that's how I found out as well.
That is amazing. What's all the emotions that one goes through when something like this happens? What are you experiencing? And you're experiencing it for the first time, so you're sharing this with us live.
I am. And I mean, this is the first kind of real phone call and face-to-face like interview that I've been doing. It's a lot. Again, I think that I'm very fortunate in that when this happened, I was kind of out of my comfort zone. I was out of my hometown, so to speak. So my mind was preoccupied with, hey, I'm here to have a good time with my daughter, and I don't want her to feel that I'm doing work. That was the whole point of this trip. But at the same time, like I probably slept like an hour last night. It was really settling in after my daughter fell asleep, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is really real. It's a mix of emotions. Like I'm not the first entrepreneur to go through this, nor will I be the last. But as others who've done this before and have experienced could probably attest to, it's a whole whirlwind of emotions. I start thinking about the past. I remember back in 2008, just like starting the business, kind of like maybe some of it kind of being like the end of life, right? Where you start thinking about the past and like that whole journey. You try to like, wrap that into, a few minutes of segments, but it was a 14 and a half year journey. But yeah, just a lot of different memories, good, bad. But it was, it's just a lot of just processing all that.
Yeah. That's the scene in the movie right before you die, or right before.
Yeah, exactly.
Your life flashes. From 2008 to today, what's flashing? Like, what are the moments that come to you? What are the memorable moments that are like kicking in?
Yeah, and I shared this in my, I wrote a LinkedIn post. I wrote a letter out to kind of everyone that's followed me on this journey and been supportive of that. But even back to the days where like I came out here, it wasn't like the true immigrant story. I didn't come out here with like $9 in my pocket. I had a little bit more than that. But I didn't know anybody. And so from that standpoint, as somebody who grew up mostly in Southern California, and I built businesses there, I ran restaurants for my father. I opened up a restaurant. Coming here, nobody cared and nobody knew me. and I didn't have a network. And so just even that feeling of like I was alone right now, but at the same time, I had this chip on my shoulder. I go, I got to make it here. And I chose to come to New York because this is the biggest stage. I want to make it here. And so even that, just like feeling that sense of like, hey, like that hunger, that drive, that like, there's no way I can fail type of an attitude. And even being reminded of that, I'm like, wow, like I haven't felt that in a long time, right? But it put me back to that where I was like, okay, eliminate your network, eliminate your net worth, eliminate your, all the things that have provided provided me with a sense of security, over the last decade plus in its most naked form. Like, it's just like, I was a hungry young entrepreneur and I wanted to make a name for myself and create something that I could be proud of. And then thinking about along the way, shortly thereafter, my cousin joining me, us working out of the back office of East Village store. I mean, this thing was probably not even like legal to have more than 2 people work out of, but we did just because it was so small. And just the first, batch of franchisees who took a chance on me, right? I'm just this kid, I'm signing franchise agreements. They're handing me $30,000 franchise checks on a wobbly table in the back of the store because we couldn't even all fit in the office. It's like those things flash back, kind of the start. And then just, along the way, some great people who've come and worked with me and alongside me to help grow this business. All the different partnerships and partners, including yourself, and just, thinking about all those interactions, those get all like jumbled up. But again, like even just all the travel, right? You and I met in Mexico at a conference and we had the same flight back. But a lot of those types of moments where it's just like, man, how truly blessed have I been to not only be able to fulfill my desire to come to New York City and build a brand that can last, but also just the amazing people that I've met. And then thinking about, okay, how much more can I do with more now? Back then the journey was, how much can I do with so little? Now it's like, how much more can I do with more? And I think that's the next chapter. That's more of where my mindset is now, is like, wow, that's exciting. And I hadn't really been able to process that piece, but I'm sure as I'm, I have the next, several days and weeks to think about it. Like, that's where I'm going to wrap my head around and just think like, okay, you kind of got this clean slate now. Like, what is it that you really want to do? And I mean, for me, I know the general answer, right? My mission was, to help create, these lasting brands, specifically within the food and beverage space, that can last and that people will love. I love even now hearing like, oh my gosh, I remember like I was a kid when I used to go to your store, and now they're in the workforce. And so, it's one of those things where like to have a generational impact like that, like that's amazing. Because I remember how I felt when I was a kid, whether it was like Nintendo games or just things that like had lasting impressions, or even restaurants that I go to, and I was just like, what, that was my happy place. It's not about anything other than all those memories. And so to be able to replicate that and be a part of everyone's kind of like, or a lot of people's like, history of life and all those positive moments, like I'll never get tired of doing that. I'll do that for as long as people allow me to do it and listen. So that's...
You leave at the top. You leave with sales crushing it. You leave beating pandemic while others failed. You leave doing better collabs than Supreme with Oatly and with Cheesecake Factory. You leave on top. And how do you feel about that? Do you get to look back and be like, yeah, I am leaving on top. I did crush it. Or are you like all those other entrepreneurs like myself who are like, it's never enough. I wish I did X. I wish I did Y. How are you feeling about your journey?
It's one of those things where I certainly don't feel in my mind like, well, I'm leaving on top. I did everything that I could. Like you said, I think there will always be this entrepreneurial founder's guilt of like, I could have done more. I should have done more. But that being said, like, again, while I was reflecting in that letter, and even then I had to think, like I had to process all those things before I had to check out of the Holiday Inn Express, which is where we were staying directly across the street from Thorny Park. But as I was doing that, like, again, like those logos and partnerships and all those things started flooding my mind. And I'm thinking like, man, like that's pretty amazing. Like as I'm writing it, I'm like, if I'm reading this and I remove myself from it and I'm reading someone else, I'm like, wow, you've kind of accomplished, some pretty cool things. And so, that's probably as close to a pat on the back as I'm going to get. But I gave it to myself in that moment as I was writing. It was very kind of like transcendent. I like pulled back and it was like third party. And it was like, like not too shabby, not too shabby. And to think, did this, completely bootstrapped, call me an idiot, whatever you want to say. Like it was not an easy journey, but one that, and looking back on it now, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think even just by, again, focusing on hey, my lifeline needs to be, this business needs to be profitable. I cannot blame the Great Recession. I can't blame double-digit unemployment. I can't blame a pandemic. I can't blame anything. You know, I mean, I can, but I can't if I want to keep this going. And so I think that this time around, and again, I think just being able to resilient brand in New York City, right? The most resilient city in the world. I just think like all that is very poetic, and for that to be my story and something that no one can take away, regardless of whether someone wants to criticize, be like, well, you should have been at this number of stores, you could have done this. I think that from start to finish, that story is now complete. I can put it in a box, I can shelve it in my memory bank, and it'll always be something that if I need a little bit of that, of my own medicine, I can kind of pull that back out, take a bite of it, you know, go down memory lane and be like, hey, remember, like, you've gone through some stuff, you know, and you've been able to, you know, emerge, you know, stronger, maybe a little bit wiser. And so I think that's something that I want to hold on to, and I'll probably cherish forever. And again, it's so fresh right now that I'm not thinking like that deep or that far ahead, but it's something that I know will always be there for me. And I mean, just even from a confidence standpoint, the next time something goes wrong, or if my next startup doesn't do well, it's just can look back and be like, hey, but you've done this before, right?
Yeah.
You've done things. And so I think, that's what I look forward to, just having that as a reminder that, you know, anything's possible.
It's amazing. Anything is possible. Now, real talk. All right. This is what I would ask you if we were grabbing a drink. What are you not going to miss?
What am I not going to miss? You know what it is? I think the biggest thing is I'm not going to miss a lot of the, I'll call it like the crutches. So for instance, like not being able to make decisions, where it's so easy for us to look from as an outsider and be like, oh, you should do this, right? It's hard to untangle all that when there's a decade plus of relationships, decade plus of maybe some bad habits or exceptions that were formed, and those things maybe being limiting beliefs as well. But, you know, some of those relationships maybe that weren't the most healthy, you know, being able to break free from that, that's nice. And again, maybe even outside of 16 handles, it can be a different relationship, but you know, there's some of that. I think also, again, like if I were to look at this and this were someone else's brand, I'd be like, well, why are you still doing that? Like, don't do that. Like, that's holding you back. And it's like easy to say from the outside, hard to say. Having those kind of shackles broken, now being able to have a clean slate, that's very refreshing. So I won't miss that, feeling like, you know, there's some of these chains weighing me down. And then, yeah, you know, I think the other thing also being is, now I don't need to write the story in the same way. Now I don't need to bootstrap it, do it without investors and advisors. You know, like it doesn't need to be this like crazy solo journey. It can be now, hey, there's different ways to be able to go about building brands, and let's try some other ways, right? Let's try other ways that other people have been successful with as well. And so, those are probably some of the things I won't miss.
My dogs want to talk to you. They want free yogurt. So they are being a menace. How did the family support you? What role did they play? The wife, the famous TikTok daughter, what role did they play?
You know, my wife, and this is why I married her so quickly. You know, I know I told you the story, but after date number 1, it was 85 days later, I put the ring on her finger. I knew that she was going to be the type of mom, the type of wife, the type of life partner and support that I would need. She knows that she married this kind of ambitious and crazy entrepreneur. So she's kind of the more level-headed, higher EQ and stable one of the bunch, right? And, you know, I think for a day she freaked out. She's like, wait, so are you unemployed now? And I'm like, I am. But, you know, I have a couple extra dollars in the bank as well, so we don't have to worry just quite yet. But you know, she's been super supportive, and I know that she's really proud as well. So that's been a great foundation to have kind of by my side, along with my parents, my in-laws, my relatives. I mean, even my cousin, right? I built this business, almost the entire journey was with my cousin Alex, who joined me shortly after I started 16 Handles. And honestly, like without him, I wouldn't have been able to do this on my own. And so even though I say it was like a lonely journey and I did it myself, like there was still a team. There was still family and people supporting me. My daughter, interestingly enough, I told her, right, because she was asking even yesterday at the water park, she goes, Daddy, why are all these people like messaging me? Why you keep looking at your phone? And I was like, well, you know, honey, Daddy sold 16 Handles. And she got sad initially. She's like, that means we can never eat 16 Handles again. I was like, no, we can. You're just gonna have to save up your allowance and buy it yourself now. You know,
That's
but,
so cute.
Yeah, and you know, like it's really interesting. I mean, she's only 5, but she even said something. She goes, that's okay, Daddy. I'm still proud of you because you'll always be the founder of 16 Handles. My daddy will always be the founder of 16. I'm like,
How old is she?
I was like, you're a genius. I was like, maybe I need to put you on my board for the next company. But, you know, for her to say that, yeah, it's a brand that she's loved, and she's obviously been, you know, very supportive of as well, even in her own way. But yeah, it's great, you know, and I think at some point, you know, I'll be able to celebrate even with my family. I haven't had that opportunity yet, but between families, friends, yeah, I'm just looking forward to also like kind of like re-engaging, right? I think that's the other thing too, is I can kind of like take a breather, take a step back, and be able to kind of reinvest into some of the relationships that, you know, being in that hustle mode, as you know, like you have to make some of those sacrifices, and now being able to afford the luxury of being like, hey, like let's reconnect. Clearly there's something to talk about, you know, regarding this, but then also even beyond that, just to be able to engage with people that I haven't been able to as much. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
So happy to reconnect. And founders are very forgiving with other founders because we know exactly what it's like. So it's so easy to pick back up. So
yeah.
So that'll be easy.
Yeah.
Two more questions and I'm done. You were always, you know, very tech forward, more than any other human I've seen. I've seen you do that time and again. I've seen you do that with picking Toast. You're the first one to pick Toast, first one to pick Level Up in New York, first one to pick Lunchbox. You're my first customer. Why, first of all, why are you there first? How do you get there first? And how do you say yes while everyone else says no and waits for you to go ahead and pay the price while they come in later and get a version that is, you know, more buttoned up? Like, you know, like I've seen you dabble in and out of technology better than any other, you know, anyone else out there. I'd put you right up there with Sweet Green and Domino's. Why at your size you were able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, that's incredibly kind of you. So thanks for that praise. I don't know if I deserve all that, but I think, you know, if I were to describe it, part of it is, I think it's always been ingrained in me. My DNA is if I see something I like or want, I go after it. I mean, again, going back to even like my wife, as soon as I found her and I knew it, like I went for it. I don't like to wait. Part of that impatience, I think, allows me to, you know, get lucky in terms of, you know, from a timing perspective. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I also think I have another kind of superpower is I don't have regret. I don't dwell on yesterday and the decision I didn't make or the one I did where it didn't work out. I'm quick to move forward. And I think that's one of the qualities about myself that has really been like I said, like my weapon. In coming to a market like New York City, I knew I wanted to be here. I knew I wanted to make the story happen here. I didn't have all the necessary tools. Didn't matter. I didn't let that slow me down. And I think that, yeah, just even the last 14 years, that journey of action, right, which comes louder than words, I think is what, and I'm glad and I'm proud that, you know, to have you as a friend and also, you know, someone I'm doing business with where you've noticed that, you know, and I'm very appreciative that people have taken notice of that, but it's really that. And then I think it's also just this like relentless desire to always want to be connected to where the consumer is communicating, talking, thinking, acting, playing, right? I remember even in the past, like we were the first brand in the world to use Snapchat for like an ad campaign. It wasn't my idea, but I approved it because the guy that was on my team that presented it to me, when he presented it, I was like, yeah, like we should totally do that. So I think, you know, even just having more of that, like have a yes mentality first, as opposed to no, prove to me why we should. You know, there's a time and a place for that. And, you know, typically that will fall in the CFO's role. But, you know, I do think that as a CEO founder, it's important that if I'm not there to make an impact, to grow, to try new things, to discover, then how can I ask my team to do the same, to support me in my vision? You know, I think those that have been with me also will attest to that. And I think I'm the type, I'll give you as long of a leash as I think you can handle. And if you can't, you can always shorten it yourself, or if I need to, I will. But I prefer to give it to you first, and you show me something amazing rather than restrict you. And then, you know, and I get as much as I'm allowing you to give me. And I do that for myself as well. You know, it's give myself a long leash. I forgive myself easily. I move on very quickly. And more than anything else, like remove myself from it and always focus on like what's out there. Like, what are people doing? What are they talking about? And, you know, I go to all the different conferences and summits for a reason. And that's not just because it's fun. It is, but it's also like, that's where the learnings happen. You know, that's where I'm constantly learning. I'm taking notes, I'm processing, I'm listening to others. And then when I come back, I'm able to apply it. Even with the small company that I had, I'm able to make big boardroom level decisions because I'm hearing, you know, the CEOs of some of these companies you've even named talk about what it is that they're doing and what their outlook on the future is. And while I may not have the resources and the budget that they do, it doesn't matter. I can still take that approach, that mindset, if I believe in what they're saying and how the, shift and the dynamics of, the ecosystem is moving and how the consumer is changing, then I want to take that data and do something. And that's the thing. I always come back and I do something. Again, more times than not, it's in the positive direction. It's not always right off the bat, but I do something. And I think that's where, again, I don't go there just to take notes, feel good, but back. It's making those incremental changes, I think, is something that, look, I started running 2 years ago, right? Same thing, like pick up and go, and I think that that's so important for all people, but especially us founders, to kind of be reminded about and find those moments where we can have those victories. We don't need to win the first marathon we ever run, but to go out there and get that first run in, like that's super encouraging for us to then go out and be like, wait, I can do this. I can get better at it.
Yeah, I think being a founder is before the run saying I'm going to win this marathon, and after the run realizing that we just love the run more than anything else. We just want to be in the game. Last question, Solomon. Last one. And I know you've gotten this 100 times, so I'm helping you out if anything. Which is what's next? What's happening next? How much can you share? I know you're cooking something up. And if you're going to be cryptic, I don't know if you're going to be cryptic. We didn't talk about it offline, but if you're going to be cryptic, who should be reaching out to you? Who should be the ones that are pinging you and are going to add value on your next venture, if at all?
Yeah, obviously, I think that's the first question. I myself have been guilty when I've had friends and peers, sell their business or exit. But the what's next, honestly, to me is just more of a continuation of what I've been doing. My next concept, which is around cookies, it's no new news. I posted about it a month ago or so, because I've been looking for an operating partner for that. But honestly, it's taking what I've learned and being able to copy and paste the parts that I know work really, really well. And so being able to take an idea, create an experiential environment around it. This is specifically within, food service. But even outside of food service, more of the companies I've invested in and advised now are actually CPG brands. And to me, again, I'm a believer that this idea of what does it mean to be an omni-channel brand? That's exactly what it means. It's meet the customer where he or she wants to be met, period, right? Hard stop. Like there is no, oh, well, we're a grocery brand or we're only a restaurant brand. No. If you're consuming, if people are eating your product, then be in it every single place that you can. And to me, like I'm a firm believer of that and I want to do more of that. So part of it is continuing to work with other entrepreneurs to help them do that. And then even for myself to build those from scratch again. And so it's a combination of the two. I've already been seeing my inboxes be filled up and people want to talk and meet and send me texts, and that's all fine. I think if anything, that's just been accelerated now to a level that, will probably require me to spend a lot more time reading these things. But that's what I love doing. I love building, or at least the journey of trying to build these lasting brands that people love, where they look back 10 years from now, they're like, man, what did I used to eat? Or what did I used to do before that? Like, wow, like I'm so glad that that's there. And that's what I want to keep hearing over and over again. And 16 Handles was that first one. And hopefully it'll be the first of many. But, it's that. And what I'll shameless plug here, and I just posted it, but, to follow that journey, I think something that I haven't done the best job of is really documenting that and taking people along for the ride, giving them front row seats. It's something that I've enjoyed doing, advising and mentoring, but now to try to even do that at scale, right? If I'm talking about, hey, scale through franchising, how do I also scale these learnings and these experiences? Well, I'm going to start doing that. And so, that's at jababrands.substack.com. Sign up for that. And, hopefully my goal there is to, do a weekly newsletter and talk about some of the things and insights that that I can share, but then also even feature some of these others who, again, maybe haven't been brought to the limelight and also deserve that. And so it'll be like an Indiana Jones type of a journey in creating more and more food and beverage brands that people love. And also, again, you can't do that without the food and restaurant tech, right? And the marketing tech that allows you to be able to scale, because you can have the best tasting XYZ, but if only 3 people know about it, then that's it. So
that's it. That's awesome. Solomon, thank you so much this is a day after, so I know you're running from calls to calls. I'm sure everyone's pinging you. I'm sure old friends are showing up from the woodwork, right? Hey, Solomon, how you doing? So I really appreciate you making some time for me. You're the man, and I'm just so proud to see you on this journey, have such a massive win for a lot of different communities, not just the founder community, the Asian community, the community of people that are not from the inside, if you will. People who are from the outside who figured it out before money was out there and before money was out there so available. and just so proud to know you and be a small person who gets to see you and learn from you and be mentored by you. So I really appreciate you, man.
Hey, my pleasure, Nabeel, and look forward to the next time we can sit down and break bread.
Let's do it.